All right, let's get a good week started with a 49ers alarm update, as promised from downtown Visalia. Top of the parking garage, where on this beautiful March day, you can see the Sierra Nevada mountains. 49ers met on Sunday with Justin, Oregon linebacker, who may go late in the draft, maybe an undrafted free agent. Intriguing guy because he's 6'4", 230, taller than even Fred Warner, and we know that the 49ers do like those long linebackers, could potentially moonlight as safeties, cover guys. He ran a 4.6 at Oregon's Pro Day, and obviously 49ers had a massive contingent on hand there. So get used to it here over the course of the next several weeks. There are going to be pro days, there are going to be meetings, there'll be 30 visits. The 49ers have 30 of those where they can invite a player to the team facility. Sometimes they invite a whole bunch of guys at once. It's almost like a recruiting class trip, and those are typically the best clues as to what the 49ers are going to do in the draft. By the way, that nice building behind me, that is now called the Bank of the Sierra building, actually has a connection to San Francisco. Opened up as the Bank of Italy building in 1923. And it's, I think, one of the more majestic buildings in downtown Visalia. But Bank of Italy was founded in San Francisco, in North Beach, by A.P. Giannini, who later renamed it to Bank of America, and he revolutionized banking, and he made banking a branch service that everybody could really access, and that all started with Bank of Italy, which became Bank of America in San Francisco, and obviously Visalia, a few hours southeast of San Francisco, was on the branch list for the Bank of Italy. So that building right there, 1923, connected to San Francisco, 1930, became Bank of America. A lot of cool stuff in downtown Visalia, by the way. I will get to some of it here in a second. Let's talk about the 49ers and what to expect here over the next month or so before the NFL draft. I'm going to be headed to West Palm Beach, Florida, next Sunday, so less than a week from now. The owners' meetings are typically a very good spot of intel for all things team building related, because we're going to talk to Kyle Shanahan at breakfast. We'll talk to John Lynch at some point, and Jed York is also going to be there. So I find the owners' meetings, which rotate between Arizona, the Biltmore, Orlando at the Ritz, that's where they were last year, and West Palm Beach, the Breakers, beautiful resort at the Breakers. I find the owners' meetings to be the best off-season event to attend, and it just so happens that it's going to straddle March and April. And that's key because the 49ers have a lot of contract trigger dates coming up on April 1st, including the option for Brandon Ayuk's contract, which is very large, vests on April 1st. But there's other ones that I've gone through that are going to be worth checking in on, and I think it's going to be very useful to be able to talk to some of the 49ers decision makers at about the time that these contract triggers are expected to hit. So you have the owners' meetings, and then you're going to have a ton of 30 visits, maybe before or after the owners' meetings. And then the draft is a little bit earlier this year. It's April 20-something. It's not at the very end of April. There's still a couple-day buffer between the NFL draft and the month of May, which will see the 49ers invite the draftees and the undrafted rookies that they sign to the facility for a rookie minicamp. That rookie minicamp will be before OTAs. It will be about 2 weeks after the draft, and then OTAs will happen. And we know that OTAs have been considered a landmark date in the Brock Purdy contract negotiation, because Purdy did strongly imply when he spoke at the end of the season that he would like to be at OTAs and have this all resolved so that there would be no interruption in the 49ers offseason. And I think that San Francisco really wants to take advantage of the fact that they've got a full offseason here to rest and then build up for the 2025 season. Obviously, they had played 60 games over the course of the 3 years entering the 2024 season. That exhaustion was palpable. 49ers trying to get younger this offseason. They're trying to get more rested so they can be more healthy. And then they just want to build things up the right way, since they will have that springboard of rest, since their season did end without the playoffs this past year. And that means, I think, everybody around the 49ers would love to have this Purdy situation resolved, and the quarterback at OTAs leading the team We have no indication if Brock Purdy would hold out of OTAs without a contract, but I think that if you're San Francisco, if you're Purdy, you are better off if this is done sooner rather than later. One thing I will have to say is that Purdy is only going to get more expensive the longer this takes. Dallas went the franchise tag route with Dak Prescott, and they ended up with a quarterback who had enormous leverage entering the 2024 season, and that's where the deal worth $60 million annually for Dak Prescott came from. So I think that you pay sooner rather than later in situations like these when you have an A-list player on your hands and you are in a better financial position as a football team. Now, obviously, it takes both to sign on the dotted line. It's not just the 49ers pressing a button. They have to reach agreement with Purdy, and I think a lot of people often forget the complexities of these negotiations. And it starts with the fact that you have to get both sides to agree to a number, to the guarantees. And I still do sense good vibes coming out of this negotiation, but reaching that happy zone is often something that is easier said than done, as we've seen over the course of years with the 49ers and with other teams. That said, they were able to get Deommodore Lenoir done on the earlier end of the spectrum, and they have cleared up a lot of cap space. They've done the financial groundwork necessary to build this team and the structure around the quarterback. So we'll see what the next step for the 49ers is. Another date that's going to be important to remember this offseason happens on April 9th. That is the local pro day. That's actually going to be our first visit to the facility since the end of the season. We've had the NFL Combine where we saw John Lynch. Then there was free agency where the 49ers did not have a media availability. And the next one is the local pro day where the prospects who are tied to either Bay Area schools or were originally from the Bay Area will come to Levi Stadium. Last year we saw Terique Owens at the local pro day. So, that was a little bit of a foreshadowing of a player who the 49ers would add. They signed Terique Owens as an undrafted free agent. That is, of course, the son of Terique Owens. And I think when we're talking about the 49ers receiver position, I always talk about the potential need for one more receiver. But Terique Owens is a player who might be in the running for that spot on the 53-man roster. They liked him enough last year that even after he broke his hand during training camp, they were able to bring him back and sign him to the practice squad. And this is a very raw prospect who improved in real time. I mean, I saw it with my own eyes over the course of the offseason program and training camp last year. He started off looking completely overwhelmed, and before he broke his hand, Terique Owens was making plays. So, when you look at the fact that even if Brandon Ayuk stays on this football team, he's got to recover from an ACL and an MCL, and you look at the fact that Deebo Samuel is no longer part of the 49ers, and you're going to rely a lot on youngsters like Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing. I mean, pending the draft, we'll see who the 49ers bring in. There does seem to be a spot that somebody like Terique Owens can emerge into. And he's got, obviously the pedigree with his dad, Terique Owens, but he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and it seems like he has the drive, given how much improvement we saw last year with a lot of meat still on the bone, to make some waves for the 49ers at that receiver position. So let's keep an eye on Terique Owens. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on downtown Visalia, the place I was talking about used to be an old Enchanted Playhouse, which was a cool little spot that was, I think, originally maybe a movie theater, then it was a playhouse. Now it is a golf bar. It's called Mulligan's, and it looks like a really cool spot to watch the 49ers. I was able to hop in, see some of the simulators there, and see some of the big screen TVs. Looks like it will be a good vibe for 49ers watching coming up this fall because, yes, Visalia very firmly 49ers territory. All right, there's your alarm update from downtown Visalia. We'll talk to you guys soon.